Hey, everybody, this is Munson Steed, and welcome to CEO, where we introduce you, as always, to some of the biggest, brightest, and diverse CEOs in the community. I really am proud of this sister. She's a sister with superpowers. She hails from the city of Philadelphia. Sisterly love. I don't know why they came up with that term, brotherly love, but sisterly love. Clearly, the CEO of the African American Museum in Philadelphia, Dr. Ashley Jordan. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ashley Jordan. How are you?
All is well. Thank you for this invitation and that warm introduction.
When you think about just a African American museum, what should an individual think about and know that are on your agenda items from the start of every day?
I would say that we are an institution that is dedicated to preserving, collecting, as well as championing the voices of the celebrated as well as the unsung African Americans. And one of the things that I find most fascinating about the work that we do here, because we do have a focus that is on a local narrative, what it shows is how ordinary people can have extraordinary contributions to the national narrative, which is American history. And I think that people will see that you can find inspiration and even just great stories of history right in your own backyard. So I think that is the good thing about being at a place like the African American Museum in Philadelphia, because our exhibitions and our programming, even some of the artifacts, are extensions of the community.
Community, those who haven't had the opportunity, really don't know who your community is. What exactly do you see as a community, and who do you want coming in those doors?
I would say our demographics for museum visitors represents that school group age of K through 12, as well as that demographic of like 50 and up. I know in ways in which we are working to improve our programming, our exhibitions, to have those features that attract that median age between 18 and 45. Again, I think we were wrestling with at one point the fact that history for some is something that is regulated to the past. But if we implement things that shows that history making events are happening every day, having themes that are very much so relatable in the sense of universal things like love, friendship, family, employment, social justice, we're making better inroads and connections to the people that we serve because we're creating programming that revolves around the world in which they live.
That door sounds very opening, but the Eagles, you almost made it there when we think about programming. Describe the new programming and the efforts that you've made to really connect to our community.
Yes. And so just this past Sunday, although we didn't get the outcome that we would have hoped, we were able to host a Super Bowl party here at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. For us, this public programming opportunity acted as an outreach element because we saw a demographic of people coming together that otherwise wouldn't come to a program, wouldn't come to an exhibition, but because of their love for the Philadelphia Eagles, they definitely utilized this opportunity to come together. And again, us as a history museum, we just don't want to be a museum that collects history. We want to be a museum that shows that history making events are happening every day. And so it was important for us to highlight the fact that on this national stage, for the first time ever, we had two African American quarterbacks competing for the Lombardi Trophy. And so we wanted to show history making events. And so we were able to meet our initiatives within our mission, and then we were able to give back and have some outreach to our community and help with those demographics for people that we sometimes miss in our everyday visitor statistics.
I love that. So if you're programming and this is the real outreach, obviously you started with that in mind. What was it like when you began to really say to the your team, "Hey, this is a moment. This is historical." How'd you round them up, and what was the experience like?
Excellent question. When I first shared this with my team, for some, I would say our staff is, in the sense of their skill set, are coming from different places. So not everyone is coming with a museum background. Just different spheres within their life makes up our conglomerate, which is our workplace staff. But once I shared the vision with them, they were like, "Yes, let's do it. Like our community needs this. And in the sense that we celebrate the culture, that's when they really took hold of this idea and this concept. And again, just for that chance to connect with people who otherwise may not come to the museum every day or to some of our other planned events, they definitely looked at this as a way for outreach, more connections. And one of the things that we can say about the responses from people who were in attendance, it was like the best survey reader, because immediately the response was like, oh, when are we going to do this again? Are we going to have another Super Bowl party? So we felt like this was a great opportunity for us to do this again. And it's true, as people say, how sports can bring people together. This museum is allowing people to come together in new mediums, and why not through the usage of play and having fun and activities? So we definitely will try this again.
Well, you know, when you think about that, it was history for each picture that you hold time. The individuals 20 years from now won't say, some will be around, some won't, but the love and the whole spirit of the community will be captured, and I'm sure you did. So I'm really excited that it's history and community love in action. Where did you find your love for community? And when did you set out on this journey to really not stop at a master's or MFA or something like that, and decided that, you know, we really need more doctors in our community, which is something I believe.
I would say, and I love that question, it's twofold. So the first part of it, I would say my love for the community stems from my birthplace. I'm originally from Mansfield, Ohio. I would say that within a small knit community, you definitely get to see the kinships of the community. And I definitely grew up in a community that was a front porch community. Oftentimes now we see people living in gated communities. Oftentimes your invitation to their home is by invitation only, but I definitely felt like I grew up in a neighborhood where everyone had some assistance with raising me. It was a village. And so my altruism towards the community started very early. My parents and even my grandparents always instilled us the value of being a part of the community, serving the community, so that we can all uplift each other. So all around me, I just saw community people doing great things on behalf of our city. And so it just kind of it kind of sparked something within myself, but I just found a platform in which I can do that, and that is through history and by talking about African American history and culture. So that has been very beneficial for me. And I would say it was the internship that I had at the National Museum of American History, the Smithsonian, that kind of led me on this career path to now. I had a very good advisor. Her name was Dr. Faith Davis Ruffin, and she was the curator for the African American Life History Division. And she was the one who kind of like put this, like this, I guess, more of the understanding about public history. Because prior to going on this internship, I was in this exploratory phase with my own profession where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because the only thing I knew that you could do with a history degree was teach. And I didn't want to teach, but through public history, I got to see how it's bigger than the classroom. It's in museums and homes and battlefields and within monuments, and told from a perspective of someone with a history background. And so I like that element, but I also like that ability to show relationship and meaning behind an artifact or a picture or a dress. And particularly in areas of African American history, again, that extension of the community, how we see these ordinary people making extraordinary contributions. I was like, I love it. The fabric of our contributions to this country. I don't think there's a time within this narrative that you can't place an African American in our contributions. And that's the part that I love the most. It's just a beautiful story, although at times not, the most glorious, but it's how we overcome. That's the part that keeps me inspired.
You know, I really appreciate that, the insight. At the same time, when you think about that level of history, we are at a moment where we have to study. If you could speak at a Spelman or a Fisk or a Howard or Morehouse, why would you share with them as a doctor and obviously a leader of African American thought leadership in an institution? Why should we study our history? If you could give a speech, what would the title of that speech be? And then what would the three things that you want them to do as they study our history?
If I could have a chance to talk to our future generation of scholars, I would definitely encourage them to learn as much as they can about our history and our culture, because we are living in a world where they are trying to remove subjects that speak to our history and our culture. We're living in a climate where people rather believe fake news than the truth. And it's so important that we have this next generation who is informed about the history in its entirety so that people can make the best informed decisions for history. It's important that people know so that history won't repeat itself. And so the more people that are aware of our stories, champion our stories, the better this country will be, because that's the issue. We're up against those who are trying to rewrite history in a false narrative, and we have to make sure that history has to be maintained in its entirety, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that people can have a higher resolve. We have to learn from our mistakes. And I do believe that this African American history narrative has to be maintained because of our contributions. And if we forget about the contributions, we forget about ourselves. Because our existence is tied to our ancestors, and we can't forget that.
You know, there's a beautiful several more documentaries and stories being told. And Black History Month, obviously, for 2023 is resistance.
Mm.
When you think about resistance, can you share from a historical standpoint on why resistance should be understood, and how do you define resistance for those who really don't understand what we're asking them to do?
Yeah. I would say from a historical standpoint, resistance can come in many forms. Within the plantation system, the things that I have learned just in my own journey, it continues to amaze me on how people were showing resistance in the littlest of forms. In the sense when I look about the life of Frederick Douglass, and his life was there in the Navy shipyard. So that's another thing about our story. People often associate the African American experience with being associated to slavery and the cotton fields, but each enslaved experience is different. You might have been in the indigo plantation, you might have been in the sugar plantation, you might have been like Harriet Tubman cutting down lumber. But for Frederick Douglass, he was there in the Navy Yard helping to build ships. And so he was enslaved in the conditions. And while in the Navy Yard, what he would do was he would play a game with some of the white children there who were poor, basically challenge them, acting as if he could spell a word. And these children didn't have any food. And he at the time was working within an enslaved like apprenticeship, not really an apprenticeship, but that's what they called it. And he was able to get rations each day. And so what he would do is act like he's about to spell the word, and the little kids were like, "Oh no, that's wrong. You messed up," and they would show him how to spell the word in its correct form. In exchange, he would give them a piece of bread. And what Frederick Douglass was saying, that he was exchanging for the greater bread of knowledge, which is education. And I think through resistance for him, education meant emancipation. And so those are the stories that I love to champion, in the sense of empowering yourself through knowledge as a way to tackle down these systems, through our legal, through our everyday workplace lives. That's the way to combat some of the structures that are in place.
I would love that story, and I will tell it again and again and again. There is a moment where Sisters with Superpowers and Black women as history makers and institution creators. What is your feeling as a Sister with Superpowers, which is creating a safe space with benefits? And how do you see your role and your future as a sister in moving forward the mantle of what so many have continued to push forward for our entire country and particularly our community?
Mm. I would say, as a sister with superpower, speaking to this notion of not only being a woman of color, but also a young professional, it's so important for me to make sure that I am reaching back towards the next generation so that we can continue in this work, to make sure that we have the next generation being cultivated to pass down the mantle. I feel like I have an obligation in that regard, because of my experiences, because of my ability to connect with people who look like me. I feel like that's important for me to use my platform to bring on other young professionals within this work that we're doing. That's this very important work. I think that is what my mission is to help other young people achieve their dreams, whatever that may be. And if there are young professionals within the museum space, I'm definitely championing them as well, because we need more leaders within these departments, within these museums, to tell our story and to be the advocates for when they write those scripts that sometimes are controversial or don't make sense. They'll be the ones in the room with the seat at the table that can say, that's not right. This is how the story goes.
I love that. We talked about style, and all of a sudden you're a young leader leading a huge institution. What is your style as it relates to being a CEO?
I would say that my style as a CEO, I believe in the notion of radical candor, in the sense that I am caring enough to be direct. And particularly when it comes to our mission, I make no compromise, in the sense that we are here to be an institution dedicated to African American history and culture. And I honestly believe that when you find the right funder, the mission can basically transform and transcend in ways in which we could only imagine. But that is who I am as a leader. I'm making sure that I am ever true in my beliefs, that I'm a student of my craft. I'm always constantly learning from workshops, however I can help from my staff. But I know that me, within my own power, I take it from Shirley Chisholm, unbought, unbossed. I believe in that. And I knew I wouldn't be here without strong mentors. My board is very helpful with giving me guidance and just support, do the work that we have to do. And then in the spirit of collaboration, I love working with my staff to empower them to do the work that they need to do so that we can elevate the mission. So I would say it's a team effort of who I am as a leader. I'm standing here today, but there's so many people who work alongside of me that make it possible. So I'm grateful for those collaborators.
So when you also move forward, what were the major finds? What was the surprises in the permanent collection that you really didn't know was there and were thinking about and it may not have brought out yet, but what were the major finds? Did you say, this artist's voice needs to be heard again?
Yes. So I would say one of the major finds for us as an institution, our site was built in 1976. And at the time, the museum had limited collection space. And so where we are today in the 21st century, what surprised me, because of our limited offerings within our galleries, was the fact that we have over 500,000 artifacts. We have 400,000 prints. We have almost close to maybe 100,000 like 3D artifacts. I think that was the part that was so surprising, that even some of our treasures, because we can't store them physically in-house, they're stored off-site. And so we're excited for our next phase within our journey, when we hire our collections manager, who will be able to share more about the jewels of our collection, because people need to know about this story here in Philadelphia as it relates to African Americans. There's places that are so significant to the Black experience, such as Harlem, Detroit, you have Chicago, you have DC. And sometimes Philadelphia is overlooked within that larger narrative. But I think once we begin to highlight more of our collection, people will make us a part of their must-visit destinations for cultural tourism. And we will definitely make that all possible when we move to the Parkway in 2026. Our space now will triple in size, and we'll be able to highlight the jewels of our collection in our new home located at 1801 Vine Street.
And lastly, just an idea of why should you collect and preserve not only your family history, but the nuances of old art, old stories, old letters, and not throw grandma and auntie's letters like it didn't matter?
It is so important for people to maintain their collections, because others will maintain and see the value in your collection. And I wholeheartedly always share this story with our team. Zora Neale Hurston said it best: there is no agony like an untold story. People have these valuable pieces within their homes, these papers, these manuscripts, and just thinking, oh, it's just paper, we'll toss it. No, someone else will find it, tell the story, and make the profit, become a best time seller. The story of the help about the African American domestic has been well documented by other African-American scholars, but someone else got the story and now it's a major motion picture movie. Like, we have to maintain, safeguard our history. And if you have a question, call your state historic preservation office, call your local museum. Like, they are here to help you identify these records so that you won't just seamlessly throw them away. And I really wish people would, and I hope that through this conversation, people will think twice before throwing it away.
Well, I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, CEO, President, Dr. Ashley Jordan. Thank you so much for this conversation. Looking forward to many more. And we're so proud of you as a sister with superpowers. Thanks so much.
Thank you.